Landon Rhodes is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and creative at heart, the founder and CEO of Grindstone, a 7-figure creative agency located in Lincoln, Nebraska. Landon's team has produced thousands of videos. Additionally, Landon equips videographers to grow their business to 7 figures through his company, Creative Academy. As the host of the podcast Spark to Fire, Landon enjoys interviewing high-profile business owners like Howard Behar, president of Starbucks, local legends like Joey Hausmann, founder of Hausmann Construction. Landon developed a strong work ethic at an early age in helping his dad and family farm and continues to give all and everything he pursues. When he isn't working, Landon enjoys exploring new restaurants with his wife Megan, traveling and staying active in his church, playing games with his friends, and spending time with his family. First met Landon, I think, through Colin Schwartz, doing some work for him. You set up his studio, and then we ran into each other at the gym one morning, got talking, and then things have led to where we're at right now. And I thought he'd be a great presenter for you tonight. And let's give a really loud applause for Landon.
He's offering shots already, so this is a good sign, right? He said if I need shots, that I can just call back and they'll appear. But I'm going to start with water. All right. Make sure I got everything rolling here. Perfect. Okay. So, such an honor to be here. Super excited about this. I want to start off with a question. And the question I have for everybody here is, who wants to double the amount of deals they do in 2023 compared to 2022? Say me. Okay, one thing you got to know about me, and this is, what's that? 3 or 4x. Okay, I like that. Good. So you'll be my loudest person. One thing you have to know about me is I'm a really needy presenter. So I'm going to ask for engagement, or I'll just stand up here and stare at you guys. I'm really good at staring contests. So who wants to double the number of deals? Say me if that's you. That's better. Awesome. Okay. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to scale your real estate business through media. He mentioned that I've worked with Colin. I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of really cool people to really help them level up their business and really sharpen their online presence. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. And do I point this at you, Dennis? Okay, cool. Maybe. All right, so number one, I'm going to share with you guys a simple framework that will help you double your discipline and master the mundane. Number two, how to become the go-to investor in your space, whether that's commercial, whether that's storage, whether it's multifamily, single family. Even if you don't have a big social media following. A lot of people think that you have to have that in order to have a big impact with the media that you have. And number three, how to leverage. You guys have heard of OPM, right? Everybody's heard of OPM. I'm going to tell you how to leverage OPA, other people's attention, in 2023 to do more deals than you've ever done before. All right, so first things first, but before I kind of go into these 3 points, I think it's super important that I share a little bit about my story so that you guys can get an understanding of why this strategy works. So Ted's nice enough to have a really cool intro, nice little bio for me. Successful podcast, entrepreneur, investor, that sort of thing. And that's great. But what many of you may not know is that just 4 years ago, I was struggling to make ends meet in a $500 per month apartment that was infested with cockroaches. I was in this point, just quit my job, and I felt like a total failure. How many of you guys have ever felt like a total failure before? Anybody? Raise your hand. You guys are winners. Love it. So, what if I were to tell you that, the number one thing that's holding you back from getting more deals, closing more business this year isn't, if you've had failure before, it's not that failure, more so it's delay. And the great Tony Robbins says, you see in life, lots of people know what to do, but few actually do what they know. Knowing is not enough. You must take action. So You know when you're in a place where you feel like you just can't take action? I feel like we've all been there before. When I was in that hellhole that I considered home, I distinctly remember the feeling of knowing what to do. And I read all the books, I took courses, I watched all the YouTube videos to get me all motivated in the morning. I knew that if I made more calls, I would get more deals. I knew that if I posted more on social media, I ran a media company, for God's sakes. I knew if I made posts on social media, I would get more business, but yet I didn't do it. I was too busy feeling sorry for myself in this dump of an apartment until one morning, I vividly remember this. I'm sure you guys have moments where it's kind of traumatic and you remember you can remember everything about the moment. Until one morning when I was doing my morning routine, and I was really big into the Miracle Morning at that time, so I was doing my savers, if anybody's ever read that book before. But the meditation section of that was kind of where I was in that morning. So 4:30 a.m., I'm up mid-meditation, and I open my eyes and I see the most disgusting sight. I see roaches crawling up my wall, cockroaches everywhere. And it was like a nest opened up or something. And I don't know anything about cockroaches because I got out of there as soon as I could. But flustered, I cut my meditation short. So I reached in my kitchen for some pre-workout. I'm like, I got to get the hell out of here. I have to get my brain out of this situation. I have to move in order to get past this. And so I always eat something before I work out. I grab a little piece of bread. I reach up to grab the bread only to find out that there's roaches inside of my food. I can see the faces. It's a pretty nasty picture. So I was just as disgusted and angry, probably more angry, and I felt helpless. I knew that was a point in my life that something really needed to change, and I knew that I needed to start applying all this stuff that I had been learning. Because I had been learning. I had been watching the YouTube videos. I was a huge Andy Frisella fan. I was listening to the podcast. I listened to hundreds of hours of Gary Vee, but yet I wasn't doing things to get me out of this situation. And hopefully none of you are in that situation today, but this is an important part of my story because this is the pivotal moment, which really brings me to, I forget when I put this thing. Strategy number 1. You got to go MIA. And probably not the MIA that you guys are thinking of. I'm talking about massive, imperfect action. So much of what holds us back from succeeding, whether it be social media, whether it be deals, whether it be making calls, is the 6 inches between our ears. It's the devil on our shoulder saying, well, we can't do this. How are you going to do more than you did last year? You already had a pretty solid last year. Rates are going up. Things are drying up. Everybody knows that. Home values are skyrocketing. They're about to, whatever your belief around what's going to happen around the corner. And every single hack, every single strategy, everything I'm about to teach you in the next 20, 30 minutes, whatever, is not going to matter unless you're willing to do this. Take massive, imperfect action. So here's a few reasons that people don't take action when it comes to calling, marketing, social media. I actually coach social media. I coach business owners that run creative businesses, and I also coach business owners on social media. And it's so fascinating because we ran their social for a while when our agency first started, then we moved to a coaching model. But I would find it's so wild that these people would know what to do, they know what to post, but yet they would not do it. And so I started gathering data on this, just naturally hearing excuses after excuses after excuses. And I've really boiled it down to a few different things. So number 1 is imposter syndrome. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to roll through these one at a time. And so number 1 is imposter syndrome. And so say the word imposter if you've ever felt imposter syndrome. Imposter. Okay. So what's really crazy about imposter syndrome, which if any of you guys haven't heard of this, it's basically the feeling of you're not enough and that you're unqualified to be giving any advice. You're unqualified to be sharing your story online. You don't feel that really you're worthy of really sharing your story and being out there. Some people really deal with this really bad. And they go through phases of life. But what's so interesting, if you are one of these people who does deal with imposter syndrome, is that there's 2 types of people that don't have just a little bit of imposter syndrome as they're ascending to the higher level of themselves. As they're getting better, as they're up-leveling through the ranks, they start with 1 unit, they go to 10, they go to 15, then they go to 20, or hopefully more than that and faster than that. There's only 2 types of people that, as they're ascending very quickly, that want to have a big impact that don't deal with imposter syndrome. Real imposters and narcissists. I hope that you're neither of those. But most people have dealt with this at one point in their life where they're like, oh man, like, should I post that or should I not post that because I don't know what these people are going to think of me? Which brings me to my next point, which is perfectionism. This is a really fun story. So, and I'm not going to make you raise your hand every single time and one resonates with you because I think we all have different parts of our lives where like these things become relevant. And the book Atomic Habits, I feel like this group maybe have read the book Atomic Habits. Yeah, all right, love it. Okay, cool. We got a lot of clapping for that one. So you guys will love this story. On the first day of class, Joey Hausmann, a professor at the University of Florida, divided his photography students into 2 groups. These are for the people that don't post on social media because they want it to be perfect. They want it to be perfect. He divided the class into 2 groups. He had a quantity group on the left side and had a quality group on the right side. And so what he had them do is they had the left side of the class take as many photos as they wanted to, but they were going to be judged by the end of the program based upon, like, basically they would rate the photos. And they would say, how did this one do? How did this one do? And they would have opportunities every single day, and they were supposed to take as many pictures as humanly possible in order to get better. Yet you had the people on the right side of the room, the quality group. They could only take 1, which means they were left with esoteric theories about why something would or would not work, why that lighting composition was crap, why the framing was right and perfect in this exact light. They had 1 chance, though, and that's it. And I'm guessing I'm kind of leading you to where this story goes, but the quantity group won by like 1 million, simply because they had more experience and more opportunities to improve. The quality group lost and had 1 mediocre picture and lots of theories to back up basically why their photo was better. But 1 photo is all they were left with. So to anyone who's ever dealt with perfectionism, you have to remember that it's not the fact that this 1 post is going to be the thing that changes your life. If you really want to scale and you want to use media to do it, I'm talking to those people now. If you want to use social media to grow your business, and it's not just this business, it's all the other businesses that the money you make in this business will allow you to create in the future if you're not connecting it right now. The third reason a lot of people haven't created, from what I've seen, is lack of clarity. And there's a really good book, the Bible. In Proverbs 29:18, King Solomon says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." If you do not have clarity around why you're creating content, what the purpose of creating the content is, or what's going to happen once the content is created, well then you're left with no purpose. There's no purpose for creating the content in the first place. And if there's no purpose in what you do, there is no action. If there's no action in what you do, there's no priority, which means it's automatically going to fall to the bottom of the totem pole every single time. Admin work will come first. Calls with tenants will come first. You guys can probably come up with 1,000 things that you want to put on top of marketing your business. But vision and having clarity of why you're creating the content in the first place is super helpful to have. And that leads it to being a low priority, basically, of what I just said. And this one is super interesting, which is lack of desire. So this is fun. Most people tell me that they don't like social media, and I actually don't believe them. And here's why. There might be some people who actually don't like social media in the room, and they want to basically get a bunch of passive income, disappear in the forest, never talk to anyone again. Anybody in here, is that them? Like, you just want to like off grid and you're like, peace out. Okay, there's like 5 people. That's fine. And like, I'm not talking to you at this point, so I'm sorry, just bear with me. I just had to get that out because there are people that they say they don't like social media. I'm not talking to you guys anymore. I'm talking about everybody else. But yet they have all the apps on their phone. They have Instagram, they have Facebook, they have LinkedIn, they have Snapchat, they have YouTube, yet they consume every single day, but no content is ever created. And that starts a death spiral of consumption. So here's how it works. You wake up in the morning, you get on Instagram or Facebook, whatever your poison is, and then you start consuming. So the very first thing, you're training your mind. So people that read Atomic Habits earlier, cue, craving, response, reward. Cue, wake up, craving, look at social media. Response, look at what people are saying. Reward, dopamine. Sounds pretty familiar, right? I do it all the time. I'm not perfect either. But my point with this is that when you start off in a consumption mindset, your mind just wants to consume, judge, consume, look at what other people are doing. And at one point when you're, kind of wish you would be marketing the business at that point, you're like, oh man, I just don't know what to post, because you're not in a state of creation, you're in a state of consumption. So this is one of my favorite parts of the presentation. Do we have any athletes in the room? Like you were a high school athlete, like stud athlete. It's okay, raise your hand. Well, he's got 2 hands raised, that's good. Okay, we got a few of them. So, okay, I'm assuming some of you played football, and I'm gonna run with that for now. So now, what you guys can do, you guys that raised your hand, please keep your hand raised if you enjoyed the first time that you got absolutely destroyed by an upper class linebacker as a freshman. That probably wasn't very fun. You got one guy. And yet you got back up. The coach told you to get back in line. Eventually you became smarter, you became stronger, and you got better equipped to play the game. Right? So the idea that you would like something that you haven't given your full effort is completely ridiculous. Like if the first time you try something, you get proverbially a knockdown, which is like you get like a like and maybe one comment, or your mom likes it or something. Like that's obviously not virality. That's not I'm killing it in the social media game. But at the end of the day, it's one attempt. Like, are you really just gonna like stay down on the ground, or are you going to get back up and get smarter, get better, and be better equipped to play the game? That's the question you should be asking yourself, which brings me into my strategy number 2. How to become the go-to investor in your space, even if you don't have a big social media following. You have to stick to it. So first I mentioned that you have to take massive imperfect action first. You have to start. Do something, even if it's inconsistently, then do something to try and make it consistent. And if you want to be the go-to investor in your space, with that storage, multifamily, commercial, you have to pick a lane and stick to it. So I actually want to paint a picture for you guys. I was going to have you do a mental picture, but I took the hard work out of it for you, and I put it on here. So this is a soccer field. I know we don't have a lot of these, and we don't care about this sport as much because it's a big European thing, but just roll with me for a second. Right on front of here, we have 10 soccer balls. Okay? So every time, let's think about these as social media platforms. You have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. There's probably 10 of them if we add them all up. And your strategy so far, a lot of you, has been when you want to create content, or even a marketing campaign in general, it doesn't necessarily have to be social. What happens is a lot of people, they give one soccer ball a little kick, and they're like, okay, that didn't work. And they back up, and they go over, and they're like, let's try that one. And they keep going. And what these represent, they were all in a straight line before, right? There we go. We got them all back in line. So they start off, and this is representing, no energy that's moved. But the thing that happens is you move each one of these soccer balls just a little bit further, and that represents your energy every single day you wake up in this business. For your business, when you start marketing for yourself, every little like barely tap that soccer ball forward, that's what happens when you're not putting any energy into one thing and sticking to it all the way through. You're trying the next thing. Then we're trying direct mail. Then we're going to buy sub 2. Then we're going to do cold calling. Then we're going to call agents. Then we're going to network. And it's like, yes, they all work if you do them consistently. And so what I'm showing you is an example of what happens when I did this on my computer. So all this, I basically took those soccer balls, and then I clicked over with my keyboard, like on the right arrow. I moved them all forward, and I counted the number of clicks every single time between this. And then I did the same thing, but I just clicked one ball forward the same amount of times. And that's what it looks like. That's a visual representation of focus. It's the direct representation of a bullet versus a shotgun shell. It's focus. And that's one thing that I think everybody could get a lot better at, and one thing that could really help you guys when you're trying to grow your business through media is to focus. So the second piece of this, which is super fun, and this relates back to podcasting, which is really why I'm here today. It's not because of my real estate portfolio. It's not because of my awesome blonde hair. It's real, by the way. Has nothing to do with any of that. It's because of what we've done from a media perspective and what our company and what I've been able to do with that. So the strategy I'm about to show you guys made us $500,000 in less than a year in the middle of a global pandemic. And our work was directly affected by the pandemic. So we have a video agency. We do professional video just like this. And when the pandemic hit, we were in a pretty tough spot. Like, it was really glim. Like, people were, I think you guys remember this point. I'm being very real now. This is the point to where people were afraid to touch their boxes, like your Amazon boxes. Like, I actually really remember that fear of, like, I don't want to go to touch the boxes because they might have COVID on it. It's kind of funny now, but like there was a moment where that was very real. In the middle of all that mess, we were able to somehow throughout that entire year build relationships that generated us a lot of money that were able to, like, keep our business alive during that time. And what I'm going to tell you is called a content engine. So this is the tactical, like, for all of you like hardcore tacticians and strategy people, if you want to take this down as notes, this is what works. And this is called a content engine. What it is a YouTube show, a podcast, or a content series where you either do one of two things. You either interview the people that you want to do business with. So for you guys, an example would be other investors, which I know RIA Radio does. You guys have all sorts of different investors on. So it's education and networking at the same time. And what we did is I started a podcast and a YouTube show, and I actually interviewed interesting people because I wanted to know them. I wanted to get to know their secrets and what made them successful. And I started a podcast called Spark to Fire because I wanted to know, like, that moment that switched for them, where they went from, like, Joey Hausmann has an insane story, if any of you guys have ever heard this, but Joey started off, his first project as soon as he got out of Samson was a bathroom in the middle of nowhere on the University of Nebraska campus. If you know Joey and you know Hausmann, they're not doing bathrooms anymore. He had a really big spark to fire moment where his life changed. And so I got to interview him and asked him, what changed in your mind? What took you from this place of doing seemingly insignificant commercial projects to building a freaking skyscraper? That's the sort of stuff that I was curious about, and that's the stuff that I wanted to learn. General entrepreneurship. And they happen to be my customers. We ended up doing business together. And that's why I really believe that this can work for you guys, is having the ability to create a podcast or a YouTube show or a content series where you either interview people that you're interested in, either interview each other. You could also have a global, more of like a national or a global influence where, maybe it's something with STRs and you want to talk short-term rentals and that's all you care about. Well, there's people obviously all over the world that care about that same thing, and you can build influence inside of that very specific area, get better terms on things. You can get sponsorship dollars. The unlocks are unlimited after that point, but more importantly, you are being relevant and you are staying in the game. Because what's going to happen with, you guys have probably heard of ChatGPT coming out. So when ChatGPT dropped, something in my mind shifted, and that was a reality that, like, the ability to create content just got a lot easier for everyone. And that's good if you know how to use it. Not so good if you've been not wanting to create content for a long time. And so as more and more people get better and better at creating content, it will actually get harder and harder and harder to stand out. And so having an authentic voice and really focusing on this is going to be critical as we go into a world where AI is looming for sure. And so media This is really fascinating about media, and I heard Alex Hormozy say this the other day, and it just like could not get it out of my brain. But like when you think about Joe Rogan's podcast, and I know that that's not the point here, so just bear with me. Media is the only business where marketing and delivery are the same. I'll say it again. Media is the only business where marketing and delivery are the same, meaning it's a flywheel. So as you feed the machine, the machine feeds itself, and it goes over and over and round again. And there's sponsorship opportunities in podcasting. There are, there's licensing deals you can do with podcasting. That's great. But where the real money is made, guys, is the relationships. And you guys know that because you're here. You know that by you coming here and not staying at home scrolling through the MLS or wherever that you find deals, you know that by being here in this room, there's a way better chance that you're going to increase your business and like your business is going to do better. It's a connection. It's a relationship. It's an opportunity. We're all one call away from our life changing. And really what I look at a podcast and a content engine is that is the functionality, and that is it at scale, is opportunity to continue to meet new people. And then in what's really interesting about that piece as well is that it creates short form content in the process. So Gary Vee, I'm sure we've probably heard of Gary Vee in this room. I swiped this off of his website because I thought this was the most genius thing in the world. So the first thing at the top, it's kind of hard to read, so I'll read it to you. At the very top, it says, document pillar content. The next part says, repurpose into micro content, and then distribute across social media. Take a picture of that if you want. It's also, if you Google it, it's just called content pyramid. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So this is what some of the biggest people in the world are doing. Grant Cardone, Ryan Pineda, Pace Morby. They're all doing this. Every single one of them. And why do they do this? Pace is on calls like, 30 hours a week. I saw somebody in a sub 2 hat. You probably see Pace on calls literally 24/7. And so he doesn't necessarily have time to sit there and make one-on-one short form content. But what he does do is he repurposes the stuff that he makes, and he has a system for creating it and leveraging it. And it's not that you have to go hire an expensive agency like us to get this done. You can. But you can hire editors on Upwork.com to chop your content and put captions on it so that it goes viral inside the platform because it's contextual. And all of this is possible, and it's not that expensive, but a lot of people, and this is why I went over the psychology first at the beginning, is because people know what to do. You're seeing it every single day, but they're not doing it. So sometimes it's a strategy missing, sometimes it's a psychology. So this is the strategy, guys. Take the pillar content, which could be a podcast, a show. You could be talking about your time here at this event. Repurpose that content, whether it be into a blog, if you like to write and you don't like to be on video. Short form content. You guys have seen the Hormozy style videos with the captions and all that good stuff. And then distribute the content across there. So I just showed you a system that we use and countless others use inside your industry to scale their content, scale their influence, and ultimately scale their businesses. This brings me to my third point, which is number 3, how to leverage other people's attention, OPA, in 2023 to do more deals than you've ever done before. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be a course creator to be a successful real estate investor. Quite the opposite. There's a lot more people that are successful real estate investors that are not course creators. It's just the ones that we all know that have the biggest impact on us happen to be the one that sell their expertise. Grant Cardone, Pace Morby, Steve Trang, Ryan Pineda. They all have courses that teach you how to do a thing. They sell their expertise to you. The second thing you can do once you have people's attention is grow your network. One of the coolest things that I got to experience as a result of growing the Spark to Fire podcast is that I got opportunities like this. Like, guys, I'm not supposed to be up here, but that podcast and that consistency in creating media around our business and myself is why I'm here. And you can be doing the same thing if that's your desire. But if it's not your desire, you can still be using it to grow your network and you know that your network is your net worth. I'm trying not to be too cliche here, but a lot of times things are cliche because they're true. You can attract top-tier talent. So if the number one thing that's keeping you back from scaling, say like a property management company, say it's a lending company, you have to have talented people. And if you don't have, if you're trying to attract the top-tier talent, then you got to make sure you got a solid culture. They have to make the people that work under somebody inside of like a lending company or a property management company or a title company, they want to know they're working for the best. So it gives you an opportunity to do that. This is an obvious one, but partnerships and syndications. So as you get to meet more people, Grant Cardone has a fund, Ryan has a fund, Pineda Capital. I'm assuming Pace has one. I don't know what it's called, but what they've done is they've turned other people's attention into a way for them to buy more real estate. And yes, the investors they get a benefit from that, but it's partnerships and syndications what they can do as well. Speaking engagements, I mentioned that. Here I am. And then giving back to the investor community. So Bigger Pockets did a really good job of this, right? Like, I'm guessing at one point we've all probably in this room heard a Bigger Pockets podcast. And that's a really big deal because like you're changing a lot of lives just by sharing the lessons that you've had to struggle through. Like there's things that you as an individual, you as an investor that have been through that somebody else could really, really benefit from learning. You got to know that because you guys are the risk takers. Most of you are the people that left the 9-to-5, the job of the rat race, whatever you want to call it. You left that in search of something different, something where you have time freedom, something where you have control, or at least a semblance of control over your life. And there are people every day, and I'm not talking about the people that are happy in their job working for somebody else. I'm not demonizing that in any way. I'm talking about the people that are freaking miserable in their jobs. They literally can't wait to get home. They check that button, they clock out, and they're just like, oh, thank God. You can be helping somebody get out of that position and into this community if you share your lessons and your expertise because we're all connected. And so that's what I think is really cool when it comes to giving back to the investor community. And the last piece of it is legacy. When you can leverage other people's attention, you obviously can do all the things I just mentioned, but of course one of the biggest things you can do is leverage it to grow your own business, create a life that your kids and their grandkids could never imagine because of how much passive income is flowing in. And that's what this is all about, is growing your business to a point to where money isn't in control anymore of your basic decisions and your basic needs that you have. I'm not talking about food, water, shelter. I'm talking about if a family member gets sick and you've got so much money coming in because of your real estate business that you're able to get them that experimental surgery that changes their life. Like that's what we're talking about here. It's impact. Yes, social media is a way to get attention so that you can have impact, but it all comes back to legacy. It all comes back to the impact you want to have on your family and the people that you care about. So that is the end of my presentation. I think Ted mentioned there was going to be some Q&A, so I'm here for that as well. Thank you, guys.
If you have questions, just go into the mic here in the middle. Man, you answer all the questions?
I'm ready for that shot now.
Really good presentation. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm also that person that left the 9-to-5, and it's like such a weight that's lifted off my shoulders. But one thing that I have problems with sometimes is like caring what people think about me. So when I'm posting something, I always feel like, oh, what's everybody gonna think of me? Like that self-doubt. Yeah. So how do you filter the negative naysayers? Like how do you take it, put it in a box, lock it up and throw away the key?
Great question. Thank you. What's your name?
Autumn Evans.
Autumn. Thank you, Autumn.
Yep.
So that's a phenomenal question. I deal with this literally every single day. I run ads on Instagram for my own brand for another business I run. I wish I should have put some screenshots up here just to share with you guys. But I remember I just posted on my story the other day somebody that was like trying to sell me something, and then they told me I was a scammer and that I was going to take all their money. And it's just like, to me, to answer your question, Autumn, it's just realizing that there's a lot of people that are really down and out, and you have to put yourself, like Gary mentioned this, Gary Vee talks about this a lot, and it's empathy. It's really, really tapping into empathy and realizing that you have to think for a second. Like, close your eyes and imagine how messed up that person's life is if the only way they can validate their own existence is by crapping on your world. Like, think about how sad that is for them for a second. Like, that's really sad. I feel bad for them. And so and I used to really deal with this, because before I started running ads, and then I kind of got immune to it because I switched my mindset into saying this is about me. And then you realize that they're freaking broken, and then it's actually about them. So that's the biggest mindset shift that I think I could give you, just like a switch of being like, I'm so sorry that someone lied to you, that real estate is a scam, and that, because a lot of it, I'm sure if you're posting, it could be people that are in a really bad place, and they got screwed over by a landlord at one point, and then they put you in that seat, and you just kind of have to empathize with their situation and like realize that something, a long court of events led them to that point, and I just feel bad for them. And a lot of times I just say, hey, wish you the best, and then I kind of move on. But phenomenal question, thank you.
So, an additional question. So you talked about harnessing other people's attention. And so the first item being sell your expertise. Could you share an example of where one of your clients, or an example of multiple clients where they've done that in real life? And just so we can kind of visualize and see, what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So my friend Bobby Harrington, I just met at a mastermind in Florida. And Bobby is not like an internet guru. When people think of somebody who sells their expertise, they think of like an internet marketer, and they think of this really skeezy dude that just makes money in his boxers all day. That is some of the internet marketer community, but there are also people that like have genuine expertise, and they can really help people. And so my friend Bobby spent 34 years working at Chevron, and by all standards, you would look at Bobby and you would walk right past this dude, because he's just kind of, I'm going to say this like in the most respectful way possible, but just kind of like bland, and just doesn't like stand out to you. He's a very strong dude, very great human being, but he doesn't just like stand out, doesn't capture all of your attention. And so what we did to partner with him is we actually took his expertise of all the time he spent working. He was in the military, he was in the Marines, and then he went to work at Chevron, and he actually pioneered the technology that was when they use ultrasound on welds. That's a thing that they do now. He pioneered that technology and saved Chevron hundreds of millions of dollars. That's how he got his claim to fame. And so we basically surrounded him with the idea of like, you need to unpack all of your leadership skills from doing 60-day runs in Nigeria with hundreds of people under you. Like, there's leadership lessons that just have to be extracted from those people. So like what we do is we help extract those from people and then put them into a course to where they can sell that, and we help them sell it with one-on-one coaching, group coaching, course format where there's video modules that they're consuming. So when I think about selling expertise, I think about what the courses and the coaching programs that are currently out there, that same model. You're welcome. Speaking of courses and stuff, we got the sub 2 guy coming up here.
Yeah, that's me. Hey, my name's Travis Banks, and I got one question for you. I really enjoy what you said about knowing your niche and knowing your avenue when you're going on social media and trying to market that. But I think equally as important is knowing your audience.
Yeah.
So for you, how have you gone about targeting in on your audience? Do you do that beforehand? Do you do that during, or do you just kind of see where it goes?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Travis. So my friend Ashton spent $100 million in Facebook ads, and his agency currently manages $7 million a month. He's a freaking genius. And so one thing that I learned from him when it came to copywriting and advertising, content on Facebook, whatever it is, one thing that everyone needs to know about content and social media in general is that the copy that you put with the picture, the copy that you put with the video is what the algorithm is using to place it in front of the ideal people. So when I think about when you say your audience is, I think about the call out at the very top. Real estate investors, multifamily investors, single family investors. And when you start seeing this, it's kind of like taking the pill in the Matrix, and you start to realize that all copywriting and advertising is very, very similar. It comes down to a lot of times people are calling out that audience in the very top to get the attention of the people that they want. And Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, it will send that content to people that match that avatar. And so I do a lot of that work in the copy of like either finding my audience or alienating people who are not my audience. I heard a story one time of a guy, his name is Dan Henry. He's one of the skeezy type of people, internet marketers a lot of people hate, but I think he's a genius. And he talked about your copy and your content should be so, it should so highlight who you want to work with that it actually alienates the people you do not want to work with. He gave the example of walking up to a bar, whispering something in one guy's ear, and then whispering something in another guy's ear that would make them fight each other and then basically walk away. And so he likes to stir the pot on social. I'm not recommending you do that. My point is that if you're going to stick out to a certain audience, Travis, you have to be able to speak directly to them with copy, with the language that you're using. Next question.
Hello, my name is Ariana Jefferson. So in that case, kind of as a follow-up question to Travis's, is it better to over-specialize in the content that you're creating for social media, or is it dangerous to get so into one topic where you might be limiting your audience?
Can I ask you a question? Can you give me an example of what type of content you were thinking about creating?
Oh, the content I'm creating right now is I'm a new realtor. So I'm specifically going on my experience as becoming a new realtor. So to generate other people wanting to work with me in the future, and so other people can see my process, because I know other people are new realtors at some point. So I wanted to get that kind of content out. But my specific experiences I want them to be effective.
Yeah, I always lean on the side of being more specific to who you want to speak to. And then if my avatar happens to creep into that window, or excuse me, if an avatar that is not in that window happens to kind of creep into it, then I look at that as a benefit. But I'm always very direct, because you got to think there's so much content that's being created every single day that the odds of somebody seeing your every single post that you put out individually every single day are so low. That's why people like Gary or Alex Hormozy can talk about posting 6 times a day, is because there's so much content in the algorithm that the odds are you're not going to see all 6. You're only going to see 1. And so I would increase the volume, but I would keep the demographic very specific. And then if it happens to go, to get to a point where another avatar sees it, then awesome. And then expand from there. That help? Awesome, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Kaylee Catlin. I guess my question's kind of piggybacking on the idea of like demographics and stuff like that, but how do you best use analytics to kind of boost your social media? Because analytics, like that data kind of reflects differently on every social media. And you kind of talked about like, it's kind of doing the most, but some people on certain social media platforms are attracted to certain types as opposed to other ones. I don't know if that made any sense.
So are you asking what content to post where, or help me understand a little bit more?
So using analytics, that data kind of reflects differently on different social media platforms. You're kind of talking a lot about kind of just blasting more mass as opposed to before in your speech. So how do you best use analytics to kind of fine tune the...
Just get better results? Yeah. Okay. So great. Yeah. Great question. The thing that I think about is if you're going to use analytics, there's two different types of analytics. First of all, there's qualitative and quantitative. So both matter, which is really important to know. For instance, if you post something, gets a ton of comments, it gets a ton of engagement in the comments, but it doesn't get that many likes, then you would think for a second like, oh, well, not that many people liked it. When in reality, people like it enough to say, to say something thoughtful. And so that's why even if the comments are mean, you have to read them so that you can get the qualitative feedback. I don't really like to rely on a lot of analytics for any of this stuff. Like anything that is qualitative inside these platforms, I don't rely on it at all. I rely on some of the quantitative information just to understand how stuff is doing, but that's just in comparison to other stuff I posted. I'm always me against me, not me against Pace Morby, not me against Grant Cardone. It's me against me yesterday. Hopefully that helps.
Great presentation, man.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. That's kind of my style here. So if you don't mind, if you're intimidated by creating content and trying to put it out there and actually make an impact with it so that it's positively affecting your business, if you had to pick one platform out of all the social media platforms to focus on, like the soccer ball comparison you made, what would that be and why?
It depends on the business. So are we talking real estate specific?
Yeah,
Are
sure.
we talking multifamily? Are we talking investing in single family? Like what are we talking?
Does that parse out then? Does that matter if there's specific segments or different niches within real estate?
Yeah, it does. So commercial brokers are going to hang out. They're going to lurk on LinkedIn way more than they're going to be more so on like maybe Instagram, depending on their age. So like a more seasoned commercial broker is going to be on LinkedIn a lot more. Younger commercial brokers are probably going to be on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is a safe bet for most everybody. So just like if you do one, do Facebook. And the reason is because of the platform. It ages all the way up to like 85. So like you're not going to get somebody that's too old for Facebook. On the business side, though, I really like LinkedIn because of the investor relations side of that. And then Facebook groups of very specific people is where you can get really ninja with all of the tactics inside of like talking to very specific people, networking with very specific people. Like I know Bigger Pockets has a huge Facebook following. They have a huge Facebook group. So that would be my answer to that. It depends on who you're talking to and how old they are.
Now, kind of in that same vein, let's say you want to put content out that you can actually monetize into turning into sponsorship revenue or advertising revenue from other people. Like you mentioned Ryan Pineda, Pace Morby. It seems like they're putting out like a nonstop stream of video. How, like realistically, if somebody's starting out, let's say they have a compelling video presence, they're putting out stuff that people actually want to consume in their target audience. How long, I guess, how do you even go about that? What could I expect to spend if I want to, I'm like, okay, I want to make this a thing. I want to kind of like make a plan so that I'm going to generate some revenue out of this. Is there like a baller on a budget package where you can say, I'm going to spend $5,000 and I'm going to get, this out of it, and I'm going to spend $50,000 and it's really going to, get some momentum and turn into a thing? Like, is that, I don't really know how to ask these questions in a direct way, but like, how do you do this? Mm-hmm. If I know that's probably not fair to ask, but totally you mentioned fair. Using Upwork and then like full service agencies like you have. Like, what are maybe some realistic numbers that you could throw at us to spend?
Yeah, so it depends on your level of involvement. So if you're going to be responsible for filming, managing, uploading, say a podcast, then your costs all go down. So the more white glove, the more time savings for you, the more expensive it gets. So your baller on a budget package for this is going to be, if you guys go to mypodcastkit.com or something like that. I'll get you the link, but I actually have a free kit that you guys, it's like a buying guide that you guys can go on and just download this like 12 or 14 page guide of like the perfect desk setup for a podcast or a video show. I just put that together and my clients kept asking for it. So that like less than $5,000. I think it's like 2,000 or 3,000. If you want to ball on a budget, just know that you have to do so much more of it yourself. You're going to be responsible for creation, so the production side. You're going to be responsible for pre-production. You're also going to be responsible for post-production and syndication/delivery. So those are kind of like the 4 pieces: pre-pro, production, post-production, delivery. And that's how we segment everything that we do. And so the more you're involved, the less expensive it gets. The less you're involved, the more expensive it gets. But I have that kit for you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. So basically, if you want to just go into a room, sit in an easy chair and eat Cheetos while people film you, and then you're like, make it happen, people, and then you walk out, you're going to pay a lot of money.
That's what Grindstone does for people. We let them eat Cheetos. Or we actually have alcohol in our studio, so you can drink there too. But we have a full podcast studio in Lincoln. My wife and I are going to build one in Omaha soon. And if you want that, by the way, if that's a desire, this is a shameless plug. If that's a desire that you have to like produce content in a space in Omaha, we would build one if we have enough interest. So like talk to me, because I'm very serious about it. I built a $40,000 studio in Lincoln, and like dozens of people have used it and just absolutely loved the experience. So we build that for people. So obviously, like you guys, he mentioned that I built Colin's studio. That's obviously a much bigger project for that individual. But we're thinking about building up more of a public space. And then, we do anything from podcasting, videos, courses, all that stuff inside the studio. Yeah.
Last question, then I'll kick myself out of here.
No, you're great.
So what are all the services that you can provide? So if somebody they're like, you know what, I have this idea, I want to start a podcast, I don't have the equipment, I don't have the space. You can help them create the space, design it, tell you what equipment they need, and be as involved as they want you to be. So you can do consulting and then the actual setup of it. Is that right?
I'll slip you $100 later. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, this is really complicated and I think overwhelming for a ton of people. I bet there's people sitting in the audience that are like, my God, I don't even know what to ask. But like all the stuff that you know and that you've described is just kind of scratching the surface of all this. And I've been, we've had a podcast for a year and a half now, and like I feel like a complete newbie when I'm, listening to somebody like you that just knows all this stuff. It's like it can be overwhelming. So I just don't want you to sell yourself short on all the services that you can provide to people, whether it's video production or consulting on just how to do it, or just providing them info. So
I'll run through that. Thank you, and I will definitely run through that right now. So we built Colin's podcast studio. That's a full service build. Everything from like I dreamed up the design for him, presented virtual renderings. Then we went to work on partnering on who's going to be responsible for what levels of construction. Then I actually went to work building it with him and his contractor, finished the project. So basically like tip to tail, that's going to be our highest end product where it's like consulting, construction, and final product. I do that. It's quite expensive. Then because it's directly using my time, we don't have too much of a team built for that other than a couple production assistants. And then on the done for you agency side, so we have an agency that creates high-end video content for commercials. Like we've worked with people all the way up to like Hershey's and like Hershey's chocolate, Mars Wrigley's stuffed puffs. We've worked with Lincoln Airport, Hausmann, John Henry's, like you name it. We actually have a ton of industrial businesses and a lot of nonprofits that we work with on the video side, but we'll work with nearly anyone on the projects on the video side. And then podcasting. So we have a podcast studio in Lincoln. If you want to drive to Lincoln and you want to walk in, literally sit down and start talking, that's our value proposition. Like we literally take care of everything from helping you pre-produce and consult you on like how the podcast should be. So we have consulting offer for that. And then we'll produce it, post-produce it, And then we'll even syndicate it for you. So we'll put it up on all the platforms. We'll deliver the short form content for you. We'll cut the short forms. We'll put the captions on them and give them to you so you can promote the podcast. That's what I meant with the most expensive option. So podcasting, shorts, and commercial video. And then we also coach in-house marketers. So if you have a marketer, so you could be a business owner or you have an admin that's running your social, but yet they're not really at a level to where they're doing 100 other things and the social media, which is what I've kind of found. We actually train those people, or we'll directly train the CEO or the president to run the social, and we have a training program and a protocol we put people through. It's 12 weeks, and that's called in-house marketer. So, yeah, I'm really bad at pitching myself here, so I'll just take more questions because it's more fun.
Hi, I'm Marquise Woods. I actually got 2 questions for you as well.
Awesome.
First one's a little bit more personal. So I recently been working on a social media marketing agency. So what would you say was your most pivotal action that got your business off the ground and generating revenue?
Yeah, wow, I have so much to share with you and so many things to hopefully help you avoid. If you're doing a done-for-you social agency, the number one thing you have to be cognizant of is scope creep, and you have to have your processes so dialed in that you have processes for the ongoing consistent creation of content. The reason that we have a coaching consulting program called In-House Marketer is because we did this for a while and we pivoted away from it. Obviously, that's just us. There's lots of people that run social agencies that are massively successful. So number one thing is you have to be process driven, and you have to have insanely tight relationships with your clientele. You need to be on, really, really good terms with them, and the reason is not because you have to be looking over your shoulder whether or not they're going to fire you. The reason is because you have to get in their brain, because you have to write copy like them. You have to speak like them, think like them, talk like them. And so if you can niche down to one niche, that makes your life a lot easier. That's one thing that we did not do that we probably should have done. There's a social agency I think it's called Scorpion, and they're massive. They work with a lot of home service, HVAC, industrial businesses, and that's all they do. And so they have copywriters that only write copy for those industries. And so that would be kind of my first kind of 2 pieces of advice for you, but process driven and really good at copywriting.
Awesome, thank you for that. And then my second question, I know you spoke briefly on ChatGPT. What would you say are your best strategies about implementing that application?
It's huge for you, bro. Yeah, that's massive. Blog writing is the number one thing. Guys, if you guys haven't used ChatGPT, please get an account. It's fascinating, and it's also free. It's chat and then the letters GPT, and it's put on by a company called OpenAI, which is owned by the famous Elon Musk. So that's why it's such an awesome product, I think. But basically what it does is it's an AI bot, being, whatever, that is able to have full conversations with you. I think what they did is in 2001, it scraped the entire internet, and then they compiled all that information into a database, and then they use machine learning to train an AI robot all day long, 24/7. And so it got smarter and smarter and smarter, and it just passed the bar. That's one of the least impressive things that it did. There's so much more than that. But if you go to this site and you say, write me a 4,000 word or a 2,000 word blog post, it will literally do it. And then you say, okay, that's a very general blog post. So you say, write me a 2,000 word blog post about how TED and the Omaha RIA event was so great because Landon spoke. I'm you think I'm being facetious, but guys, I'm dead serious. It will do it if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah, do it this week and post a video and watch how fast it happens. It's 1,000, 2, 1,000. It's done. It's creepy. So when Elon Musk is hey, we should be worried about this, the robot's going to kill us, that's what he means.
Hi, thanks for that. I actually did just use ChatGPT the other day to write 2 of my blog posts.
Somebody's using it. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, you had kind of to like reread it though, because it'll say like at the very end, in conclusion, it was just very,
Right.
so just kind of adjust it here and there. And it didn't seem to have a sense of humor, but can't ask
So
it to
what's
do everything.
wild, if I can nerd out about this for a second, you have to tell it to have a sense of humor.
I asked it to be poetic, and it didn't really get
It didn't?
poetic. No, it didn't. Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you for that. So I'm Leslie Koenig. My question is actually about email list building, because I heard a couple years ago that a lot of social media truly is to get them to funnel to your landing page, give them a lead magnet, collect the emails, and then you have something that is not going to be affected by an algorithm. So when the Instagram algorithm changes or Facebook or whatever, I ran into an issue where I had an email list, but then even that, my analytics, I wasn't getting a lot of engagement. So what would you recommend to keeping your email list engaged and actually get your emails opened?
Yeah, great question. Wow, phenomenal. So the part about keeping them engaged, the best way to keep an email list engaged is to provide something that is so clear and tangible in value that they would be afraid to miss it. A lot of people, what they do, and I'm not saying this is you, I'm just saying like the world, what they do is they'll put together an email campaign, and the email campaign will be a lot of promotion, but not a lot of value. And so what I've seen people do, and this is a really cool tactic, I actually saw someone that wrote a book, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but I watched somebody write a book, and they actually dropped the chapters of the book in the email sequences each week or each month or whatever. And that's like, and the book is like really specific to a very specific audience. It was to consultants. And it's called Good at Consulting, and he was writing every chapter, and then that would be value. So normally value that he would have in a video or in something else, he put into written form and then sent it in an email, which I thought was interesting. I haven't read it personally yet, but I know that it's in my inbox, and that's enough, right, to like think of him. Creating products is another really great way to do this. So if you want somebody to engage with you and stay engaged with you, newsletters are actually coming back, which I never thought I would say, but they're like really coming back. I've seen a lot of people right now do physical newsletters actually mailed to their house. So if you have their address, I've seen a lot of people do like monthly newsletters with a little bit of access. So they could do, you could do like a monthly Zoom call to the people that you want to serve, and do a monthly Zoom call, and then it also comes with a monthly newsletter delivered to their house. That's something you can do to keep those people engaged, and then keep them excited to get your emails. I've seen people do weekly newsletter where they drop information once a week that's valuable, and it's something that they can always plan to have. But the biggest thing is that Dan Kennedy, do you know who Dan Kennedy is? Okay, so study Dan Kennedy. My wife's nodding her head. Dan Kennedy is a genius copywriter, and he was really, really big during the direct mail days, and he was one of the really old guys that made it from direct mail to talking about social media. And he's like, he hates social media, but he begrudgingly wrote a book about it because so many people asked him to. And so he talked about how to build lists, and he literally has like dozens of books, but it's Dan Kennedy. And if you guys are writing any direct mail out to your list to acquire multifamily properties or whatever you're doing, even single family properties, he is very, very good at direct response copywriting. And that's the stuff, direct response is what people use to get people to take action on a post, on a direct mail piece, on an email. So study direct mail copywriting and study Dan Kennedy, and then look at his video on lead magnets. Okay. Those three things will really help you build and retain an email list.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I got another question for you. So I've been reading a book that is You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike in a Seminar, based on the Sandler technique for sales training. And I was thinking about the main ways that people absorb information. And the primary three that come to mind are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So for you, like for my specific niche, I'm creative. I've done actually 5 sub-2 deals at this point, 2 seller finance, a novation agreement. I've been doing work. But my trouble is, how do I interlace what I've been doing with like the feeling from a seller, like interviewing one of the sellers that I work with, or the seeing, like showing a HUD for somebody, or having an agent talk about how I helped them out in their situation for a listing that didn't sell. I'm having trouble like figuring out how to set up the videos, which videos to release, what times to release them, and how to actually target my audience with those types of videos for the type of people that they should be targeting.
Yeah. Okay. A couple questions in that. So, you can yell. What audience are you really trying to reach the most right now?
Right now?
Actually, use the mic so we can record it on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. You can just stay up there for a little bit.
Yeah, so right now, I'm trying to reach two separate audiences for two
Okay.
separate reasons. I'm trying to reach people who are in pre-foreclosure. I actually just helped a guy named Paul stay in his house with a loan modification, made no money off of it, but, helped him out. Pre-foreclosures, and then agents with listings that aren't moving either because they have no equity or because they want too high of a price.
So stay up here for a second. But what I love about the agent side is that that's all data, right? Those people are all over LinkedIn. Agents have to be, and there's agents in the room, obviously. The agents have to be the most public people ever because they can't afford not to be, because that's what people have been taught, and like for good reason. Like people have to know you're an agent before they work with you, right? So what I love about that is those people are very public. There's great targeting you can do by buying lists. So if you want to run Facebook ads, you could buy a list of agents specific to your area and then feed that into Facebook via a custom audience and let Facebook learn based on that custom audience. And Facebook will only send ads to those people. So that's one way on that.
Okay.
On your other side of people in pre-foreclosure, those people, it's a very specific person. I'm not a huge fan of running Facebook or any sort of like social ads for that. Mm-hmm. TV I know works for some people. I have a friend that runs TV ads here and in Vegas. And so TV ads is one, and then the other one would be really, really strong direct response copywriting in direct mail. Hold on really quick too, a really awesome hack for anyone that's running direct mail. I learned this from the guy that's called the Prince of Print. His name is Gary Halbert. If you don't know who this is, you should be studying him. He was a legendary copywriter who sold like $100 million worth of products through one newsletter, or through one direct response mail copy letter. And he would write these long letters, and people would literally, like, their beliefs would change as they would read these letters. And he was a direct response copywriter. So Gary was famous for his saying that America sorts their direct mail over the trash can. We all do, right? We're like, okay, get the trash can out. Garbage, American Express, just kidding. No, like we save those. Those are statements. We save those. But no, like all the promotional stuff that has like promotional ink on the outside of it, America is throwing away because they're like, not important, not important, not important. So they started stamping them and saying important information on the inside. But you know what always gets opened? Is handwritten envelopes with a stamp in the top right-hand corner. And he would teach people about that. And he would teach them techniques specifically with that. So when you're reaching those people, that's what I would be thinking. It's a sniper approach. So whatever you get in front of them has got to be really, really good.
Okay.
Gary, it's Gary, and then Halbert, Halbert. He wrote a book called The Boron Letters. You'll find out about this guy and you'll be like, Landon, what were you talking about? Gary went to prison, make no mistake. He was a genius. But he went to prison for some pretty nefarious stuff. So, but take the good, leave the bad. But what? Yeah, read his copy, read the Boron Letters, but like when you Google him, Google his sales letters. Very specific language. That's where the term video sales letter comes from, by the way, if you guys have heard of that. But sales letters are exactly what converts someone from a cold prospect to making a decision to buy with you or to sell their home to you. and that's direct response copywriting. So Gary Halbert. Sorry, I think I cut you off, Travis.
Yeah, so I guess I want to get more of a clear idea on your process for how you really niche down your audience and how you go and target them. Because obviously, with most people's business, if they have a property that they don't want to hold on to, they'll probably sell it to like a homestead buyer or sell it to another investor or whatever the case may be. And I know in my company, what we do is we actually owner finance to homestead buyers who didn't qualify for a mortgage. So we have properties that we're selling on owner finance to them because they didn't qualify. So I want to know your process of how you go through to really niche down. Here's my audience. Here's how I would go about targeting them based on this information.
Cool. So can I use you as an example, or do you want me to use me?
You can use me.
Okay. So on you, I would create a list. I would buy a list. I'm sure you can buy a list, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So buy a list and create what's called a prospect database. And we do this in our business. We teach other people to do this as well. And I would buy a list. I would go through and create, if you have a buy box or, qualify them in some way. And I would star them like 1, 2, 3 stars. Rate every single property, every single buyer, et cetera, based upon whether it's FICO score, whatever you have, right? Rate them all, and then basically have some sort of a buy box or a rating system to where you can put the best people to the top. And then I would personally call the top 50 yourself. And then on the ones who, because they may not just be ready yet, right? And then I would hire a cold caller from Upwork.com for $6 an hour to bang that list every single day and create a CRM, put the data in the CRM, and like stay up with these people and just follow up. It's what is it? Close or die or something like that, or deal or die. Like do enough. Buy or die. That's it. He taught me that. Buy or die. So get them to a point to where they're in a list and they're in a consistent follow-up system. Hire a VA to call those people and get an appointment set.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have one question online before we conclude.
Okay.
Colin Schwartz wrote on your live video. He said, "Great presentation, Landon. What do you do to prep for speaking engagements like this event and or podcast interviews?"
I'm blushing. Thank you, Colin. Wow. You guys are going to laugh. I sat down and so I boil mine. This is actually a writing framework that I learned from direct response copy. So this is actually really relevant to the room. But you know how like at the beginning of my presentation, can you go to the very front of my presentation where I had the 1, 2, 3 points? So I have, and you can go through the different strategies as I'm talking, but you can see that I have 3 strategies or 3 main points. The brain cannot conceptualize sprinting for long periods of time, and the brain can't conceptualize multiple topics like past 3. So, they did, and like him or hate him, Trump, when he was elected, they did a score on him, and there's a certain speaking score. Do you remember what this is called? The speaking score of like the 3rd grade level. Anybody heard of this before? There's a certain score that what they'll do is there's like software that analyzes some of the best speakers in the world, and some of the best speakers in the world actually speak to where a 3rd grader could understand them very clearly, and that's not a mistake. They do that very purposely. They don't use big words purposely. They keep things very simple, and they have very clear, direct headlines, call to actions, a simple framework. So notice I say simple, that will help you double. So now we're talking easy, better, and then master. So I use copywriting every single day, and if you guys are doing direct response copywriting, like mailers, that sort of stuff, your number 1 high income skill that can make you more money than anything else is copywriting. And if you want to have me back to do more copywriting talk, Ted, like that is something that changed my life, copywriting, because how you write is often how you speak. So I wrote all this out. I literally have every single word written on here. And then I just hit the high points. I go roll around if I've got a story, and then when I get scared, I come back to my notes. That's literally it, though. I think I prepped for 3 or 4 hours today for this, and that's it. So, yeah, kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it's time to give you a huge applause. That was a great event.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome, I got it. Cool, thank you. Good job. Awesome, thanks, buddy.
So I'm going to put this up here, and I'll do the drawing here at the end, but I have 2 books to give away and 3 business cards. So if you guys want a chance to earn a book.
Can you throw the last slide up there, please? I have a QR code in my contact info. Call to action. Got it. Perfect. Classic marketer. Thank you.
Thank you.